Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Oh my goodness. It has been, goodness gracious, a day full of technical issues left and right. But we're back. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech, finally. I am your host, Evan Sarnes, chilling in my basement because I am house sitting right now, so it's a little bit of a weird setup for me, but that's fine. Because modern technology has enabled us to be able to podcast pretty much from anywhere in the world, just like my co-host, Kelvin Crosby.
Hey, it's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, Evan.
Oh, yeah. It's gorgeous.
Besides the being in the basement, they say weird things happen in basements. So maybe that's why we're having all these technical challenges.
Well, this is our basement, too. My grandparents' basement does, it's a... Interesting things have happened. Let's just say that.
Well, I think I'm excited about today's show.
It's going to be a fun one. We're
going to try to convince me to change my mind. I think that's going to be the hard thing for you to do.
We'll see, dude. I don't know if I've ever tried it before. But that being said, today's episode is centered heavily around TalkBack, the lovely, lovely Android screen reader that has been out for a number of years, since probably like 2009 is when it first came out. And it has come a long, long way with a lot of different just iterations and additions to its feature set. So what we're going to do today is actually kind of a little out of the ordinary for this episode. I'm actually going to have Kelvin kind of basically ask me, or kind of, we're going to go over a lot of these updates. And my goal in the end is to convince Kelvin that Android is the best operating, is that he should switch to an Android. I don't know if I'm going to succeed. Probably not, but hey, that's okay. But before we get into that, it's time for our tech piece of the week. Now, Kelvin, what is your tech piece of the week?
I tell you, I've been on a hunt for headphones. And one headphone, it's not a headphone, which is surprising. And not headphone. I've been on a headset hunt that I can travel with and answer phone calls, but also
broadcast. You're looking, well, not broadcast.
All of the cool things broadcast. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but there's one headset. There's one microphone that I found that you get to wear any headphones that you like, and you connect it to the kind of sticks on your headphones. And then you have a microphone.
Is it the Antlion?
Antlion, yep. There you go.
Nice.
And they just came out with their new version, and it's the Link 2. And I tell you, what I understand, the sound, granted, it's a deaf guy trying to give you sound advice, but it seems like for only $50, it's a pretty good sounding mic, and you get to wear your favorite headset. Like I'm wearing my ATRs, I love my ATRs, and so that's where it's like, all right, I think this might be a good fit, but
I'd look into it, man.
I'm looking. I'm trying to get those eyes nice and big to be like, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But the eyes don't really get very big anymore. But what's your tech piece of the day?
Absolutely. Well, I do just need to give you a quick perspective because it's been a minute since I've heard of the Antlion, but our Brady, our grants manager, used one. And if you ever remember the old, welcome, you are listening to the Audio Information Network of Colorado. All of those were recorded with an Antlion mic. So super solid little mic. My tech piece of the week is quite different, though, and that would be the NLS HumanWare e-reader, because this thing is just, it's it's free for one, and it's a 20-cell Braille display, and it's a good one. So I've wanted a Braille display hooked up to my computer for a bit now, just for like simple text editing and typo correcting and stuff, because it's so much easier than trying to scroll with the cursor keys and do all that. And so I just figured, I'd plug my e-reader in, and I just plugged it into my computer and then went into terminal mode effectively, and it just worked. I didn't have to do any fighting with drivers or selecting Braille displays. It just connected straight up, and I could use it. And the keyboard commands are intuitive. Plus, it also allows you to connect simultaneously your multiple Bluetooth devices and your USB connection simultaneously. So I could go from my computer to my phone to my iPad or whatever, and it's the way it's done, it's just nice. It's a good quality Braille display, and even for its, like, with its e-reader functions, those are also really good too. So yeah, my tech piece is the NLS Human Reader e-reader, which does work with Android and Google Braille back too. So
I think this leads us into a really interesting conversation. Can Evan convince me to get an Android device with today's update in Android? Because honestly, with the Braille display, being able to have updates and all that, I tell you, it's interesting, and I wouldn't allow it to scratch the back of part of my head. And so I think the first thing is, the last time I used Android and intensely was when I was going viral on TikTok. And
how long ago was that?
And that was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
And TalkBack was okay.
Yeah, you had the multi-touch gestures.
Yeah, you could do multi-touch, but it messed up TeamViewer, so you couldn't have somebody remote in, so you had to do this fancy trick to make it work. And I'm just like, I don't know if I can make this my device. But after looking at the list of the updates, the head is starting to scratch. So the question is, Evan, do you think with these updates, you can convince me to go buy myself a new Android Google Pixel?
Honestly, probably not. So there's a point I need to make here, that at least it's something that I've observed with the iOS versus Android. I feel like we've gotten now to a point where it's kind of just more of a matter of what works best for you. And since, like, I feel like I get the impression you're pretty tied into the Apple ecosystem, just the way everything is set up. I don't know. It might be too much of a curve for you. But honestly, a few years ago, TalkBack in Android was usable. And in fact, I used to be a diehard Android user back in 2015 through even through 2019. Nothing but Android, and it was fine. It did not have multi-touch gestures. So if you wanted to do a 2-finger double tap or whatever to control media or just kind of any of those, you couldn't. In fact, the gestures with TalkBack were interesting, in my opinion, because they were like these swipe gestures. Yeah.
Well, I think that's where in a lot of ways, in 2019, 2018, I would develop curriculum for Microsoft.
Oh, wow.
And we were developing narrator curriculum, and it has very similar techniques. And so that's where for some people this will make sense, and some people it won't. And that's kind of where I got stuck.
Right.
So I kind of want to take us into what is the updates in Android, because at the end of the day, these updates are actually really attractive.
They really are.
And so that's where I want to dive into. So tell us, what is the one new thing that has come out in the Android update for TalkBack that you are like, wow, this is it?
Well, I'm just looking down a big list of all these new updates, and one of the biggest things for me is the ability, and I'm going to test this out, to have TalkBack describe images in great detail to you simply by focusing on an image and then 3-finger single tapping, and then it'll give you that description. I'm really curious how that'll work, because I love with my iPhone the ability to scroll through my photos, and even if it's not a Be My AI or whatever quality description, I get a brief synopsis of the photo, and it still helps me look through things. I don't have that experience on Android, right off the bat. So I'm really hoping that'll kind of, maybe give me a little bit of that experience.
Do you think it will describe it like this? You take a picture of me, and it'll say, hippopotamus hipping his way
down
along
a
the
trail
sidewalk.
Or something.
Yeah.
Well, if I did for me, then it would say a dragon.
Yep, dragon. But I'm really liking the horse. I like your new horse.
Absolutely.
If you're new to us listening on the Evan, when we did the trekker hike, I was
you were the horse, or I was the horse, and you were the hippopotamus. So, how do you think? What are your thoughts on this image descriptions? Because have you played around much with iOS's image description? It's generally pretty good.
I mean, I think I love it because it's instant.
It is.
And it's and that's the thing. It's like, all right, you need to read cans. Okay, this is a can of soup. Okay, well, at least it's not vegetables. I'm not gonna eat my vegetables. So as long as it's a can of soup and got like beans in it and stuff,
right?
I like,
as long as you can identify it, there you go.
Yeah.
Now, another change that I'm seeing is some improvements with a feature called guided frame, and guided frame, actually, for those who don't know what that is, it's exclusive to Google Pixel devices. I believe it's exclusive to the Google Pixel 6 and newer. I think any of their phones that have the tensor chip inside them. And what it will do is it'll help you line the front camera up with your face and tell you the distance, and basically it helps you ensure that you, one, look good on video calls, and two, you can take a good selfie too. But they've actually added some new features, including apparently some enhanced object recognition, which is really going to be fun to play with.
That's really good.
And they have a thing called face filtering too. So I suppose too, if you're taking a picture in a crowd and you're trying to focus on a subject, I would assume that would make it easier too. So
if you're trying to find the horse in the crowd,
you're
going to be able to find him. Okay.
But if I'm trying to find the hippopotamus, I could filter you out.
Exactly. But what's interesting about this, and I think this is what is interesting, from being a video creator and an influencer and all that stuff, one of the interesting things when you are making videos is knowing when you are in the shot and not in the shot. Because a lot of times, especially when I'm in a pottery studio, I have a scanner type of device. It kind of sits on a donut, and it uses AI to track my body. But sometimes the AI misses me, and I'm out of the shot. And so by using this, and I was able to do with the Google Pixel 4a, no. The 5A?
I have a 5, so...
Yeah, I have one of them. And I was able to use the AI part, but it would be able to tell me, oh, you're out of the shot. Okay, perfect. I can get back in, get in the shot, and then kind of move the camera with me as I'm like mixing glazes and doing other things and so forth in the pottery studio. And so this is something huge. If you want to be an influencer, you want to do videos, you want to do all of that, having this type of detail allows you to do it on your own.
Absolutely.
And because honestly, shooting videos is not easy when you can't see. And I mean, I'm the first person to put my hand up and and you also got to worry about lighting and all that stuff. We can't see that. But the beauty of it is this tells you if you're too dark, you're too bright, you're too low. All of that is here. And this is why the brain is starting to think, maybe I should get one of these.
And the way it's done too is really intuitive. I love the sounds that it plays while you're lining your face up with the front camera, especially if you're trying to do the selfie tracking mode. It almost sounds like a game. It's that kind of aspect of a particular feature that makes it more likely for me to want to pick up and use personally. But I think it just makes it altogether a more intuitive feature. And yeah, I mean, it might inspire more blind folks around here, especially if they use Android, to pick up TikTok or YouTube Shorts or whatever and try and become influencers. Because I think that has been the biggest thing is, video quality. But speaking of videos, they also did some pretty big updates to the Magnifier app, and I'm really excited about these. The Magnifier app is now able to use AI to help users find specific words on things like signs, and they've added a picture-in-picture ability, which is, I guess that's kind of cool if you have like your Messages app open or whatever, and you just want to have like the magnifier window up. And if you use Magnifier solely for text recognition as a totally blind user, that actually might be pretty convenient. Now, the big thing with this Magnifier app, though, is it is exclusive to Pixel devices. So if you have a Samsung or a Motorola, you're kind of out of luck here. But yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because, Kelvin, because this has been on the iPhone for a bit. We've had features like point and speak and all that. But yeah, what are you thinking?
Well, I mean, I think this is interesting, especially if you listen to Sam the Blind Live. He raised and hollers about this because obviously he's low vision and uses magnification a lot. And what's interesting from his perspective and so others that I've heard is this really empowers your ability to gather information at large font and read it quickly and move along. And that's the thing, is being more efficient. Because people will make the argument, is magnification more efficient than a screen reader? Is a screen reader more efficient than a magnifier? And we're not going to have that debate here today. But my thing is, this is enhancing your ability, if you use magnification, to be more efficient and getting the data that you need to be successful. And that's the really most important part about this. And I think what I find really interesting about this is how it's using AI and it's saying, you're looking for a sign. Like, for example, it would have been really, really nice to have something like this walking down the airport. I'm just looking for 330 or C330 gate at the airport, and I just hold my phone
up in the air. And
yeah, by me, I like it to talk, but in this case, if you just need that, it'll just once it sees C30, pops right there, like, there it is.
Yep,
I am good to go.
I think it's pretty cool. The cool thing about both the iOS and particularly the Android Magnifier app is that they give you a nice combination of text-to-speech and solely magnification visually. So it seems to just really be a nice way to allow you to also kind of decide what information you want and what information you want to filter out. Because that's, as a blind or low vision person, at least from my experiences, the hardest thing about just working visually in any setting is the constant the constant barrage of information that we're surrounded with. Now, another thing that I'm seeing here is actually pretty exciting, and they've updated their Braille gestures a little bit and actually added a new feature called auto scroll, which has been around, kind of built into some Braille displays for a while, and I think even some screen readers have this. But basically what this feature does is it will automatically pan your Braille display down the line at a set interval. So it makes it kind of easy if you just want to read a book and you don't want to keep hitting your down thumb key or whatever. You don't. This should kind of make that a little bit more seamless. But how much would you say, Kelvin, do you use like a Braille display though on a given basis?
I'll be honest, I don't use one.
Okay.
I wish I did, but I think that's where I I have not taken the time to learn Braille, and I've done everything by audio, which is not a good thing for a deafblind guy. But when there's only 24 hours in the day,
yeah, it's kind of hard to get around that.
Make that roll.
Yeah, but
I do love. I know how to use them. I mean, I've even taught Braille displays.
Heck yeah!
But you got when you come to my classes, you got to know Braille already before.
Right,
before I teach you. And so this is a cool technique, though.
I think so.
I know for several of my clients, like this would have been extremely helpful. Reading some of the long documents that keep you on a good pace and keeping you on a good flow, and getting through those documents that you need to read and so forth.
Absolutely. And they didn't specify which languages, but that's because they've added 47 more languages to BrailleBack too. So they've just made Braille more globally accessible on Android, and it's really cool to see. So I'm definitely pretty excited about that. I did want to kind of tie these updates up with just one last quick note too that I'm seeing here. If any of you out there are deafblind and have used the or just in general, if you've tried the live transcribe feature, they have actually added some improvements to that, and they've added like a dual screen mode if you have foldable devices. They've added some expanded language support, and it's a cool little feature. You know, if you take phone calls or whatever, it's like a TTY kind of thing. So, but they definitely have made some pretty cool improvements, especially with all of the new kinds of phones coming out, like folding phones and stuff. They really have responded to that, and I'm glad to see that.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting on the deafblind side, we have come a long ways.
Oh yeah, dude.
Since 2007, no, 8.
7.
Since 2008.
Yeah.
When we passed the Telecommunication Initiative Act and to help deafblind people get technology. And honestly, just hearing this update will empower deafblind people more than they ever had in the past. Because one of the biggest struggles I think people don't realize in the blind community or in the deaf community is getting that transcript in a format that is accessible.
Right, because they're typically not.
And the other thing is, even just going to the store and there's nobody to assign to you, having this ability to just turn on the microphone and then they talking to it and it types back to you. I mean, that empowers you more than you can ever imagine. Like, it reminds me even when Helen Keller, when Ann Sullivan was really sick and her husband was sick and they were in the hotel and she needed to get emergency for them. Helen Keller had no access to the front desk or anybody else because both of her ways of communication at this hotel were through Ann Sullivan and her husband. And this, like, I remember that story so well that it burns in my mind where, like, this is such an amazing tool. And I think the more of us that can hear and can use this to make it better, the more deafblind people can have access to it, and it can get better and better and better, and give everybody access to communication and access to around us. So
absolutely,
this might have just convinced me.
Indeed, but before we get to the big question, I think it's actually time to get access to
the sandwich of the week.
So I actually am going to, my sandwich of the week was so spicy that I actually got to come up with the sandwich of the week. So I'm gonna be a big jerk because I'm not giving you the option to come up with one either. I'm making you improvise here. I'm not being very nice as a host here, am I?
Oh man.
Well,
that's good.
Man, you got one?
I got one.
All right.
It is from Dick's Barbecue, and they make a mean sausage pepper jack. No, sausage, cheddar, jalapeno sandwich. And they slice the sausage in half or in strips, and they put barbecue sauce on it, put cheese on it, and put the bun on top. Oh, man.
Dude, you had me at sausage.
Good. Huh?
You had me at sausage.
Oh, man, you can't go wrong with. Well, you can. I've had bad sausage.
Me too, but typically you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like
what's yours, man?
I feel like mine is actually it's almost similar to yours, but not quite. It's been a while since I've had one of these. Nah.
Don't be a copycat.
Meow. No, just kidding. Oh, we're keeping that in. At Denver Union Station, I haven't been there in a long time for other reasons. It's just not a good place to go anymore. But they did have a really good little like breakfast kind of cafe place, and they had these really good sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwiches. I mean, it's your pretty average breakfast sandwich, but they were perfect. And they were the best part about it was dumping an entire cup of I think it was sriracha or something like that, super spicy hot sauce on that bad boy. So yeah, my sandwich this week is a cutesy little sausage, egg, and cheese breakfast sandwich from the breakfast cafe at Union Station. I forget what it was called. And
I guess you have to go to Union Station to hunt for that one.
I'll think about that. I was actually, me and a friend were there a couple days ago for a Green Day concert, and that's enough. I think that
you were okay. I'm gonna ask a dumb question. Maybe you said concert, not football, right?
Yeah, Green Day concert. Okay. That was fun.
I just had to clarify. So you didn't wear a cheese hat?
No, I didn't wear a cheese hat. But speaking of questions, I think it is time for the big question. And Kelvin, think about it. Were all of these updates that we discussed today, have you been convinced to switch to the Droid?
I think I am willing to move my business onto the Android. Not my personal life, but the business. Because you gotta have two phones, right?
You got two phones? No, just kidding.
And since I need to get a new phone for the business, I think knowing that this is here and this is available, and the fact that I can empower other people through like deafblind individuals and have the ability to use the cameras in different ways, and obviously I can learn TalkBack in no time.
Oh yeah.
So I'm thinking a Google Pixel.
You would love it.
It's gonna be in my order.
Indeed.
Okay.
Well, that was a success. Woo! I got you switched to Android. No, just kidding. I mean, hey, I agree with you though, because honestly, there's actually, before we wrap up this episode, there's actually just a point that I need to emphasize here, and I think we've talked about this long ago when we did an episode on like iOS versus Android way back when, and that is the thing to consider with Android is the fact that like iOS, the phones that run iOS are iPhones. The phones that run Android could be anything from a Google Pixel to a cheap janky phone that you got on Alibaba or AliExpress, I mean. So,
yep.
But for the best experience with Android, if you want the best stock Android experience without any of the added bloatware or any of that, and if you want access to some exclusive features like the magnifier feature, go with the Google Pixel. You'll love it. The A series of Pixels, they have the Pixel 8a out now. Those things are like $500-600, and you get the full experience, the full tensor chip, and the really good cameras, the really good speakers, and it's just you will have a good experience with it.
That is true. I mean, being that for the longest time I shot everything on a Google Pixel for my TikToks and all that stuff, it made a huge difference. And that's, I have to say, not a bad product.
No.
And that is where TalkBack works better in a lot of ways on Google Pixels than others, but Samsung does not a bad job either.
Not really, but you will have Galaxy TalkBack to contend with, and that can be kind of a pain. And the other thing too, other big thing I think for Android users might be text-to-speech voices too, because they don't have you don't have as wide of a variety as you do on iOS, but it's become a lot more viable of an option. And now I guess if some people are wondering in the would I switch to Android? No, I actually wouldn't. I like what keeps me on iOS is the ecosystem, isn't it? That's what keeps me. I have.
Oh, so you're full in. See, I'm not fully in.
Yeah, I like my watch.
The only Apple thing I got is an iPhone.
I like the hardware of the iPhone. I like the way it feels being held, and I just that's why I will be sticking with iOS. That being said, I do have a Google Pixel in my pocket, and I do tend to use that. So I mean I'll probably get a new one eventually, but it's not going to be my main device. So anyway, that being said, thank you guys for joining us again for another episode of Blind Level Tech. If you've got feedback or questions for any of our podcast hosts or Aftersight as a whole, you can always email feedback@aftersight.org or ring 720-712-8856. I've been your host, Evan Sarnes, and this is, of course, my co-host, Kelvin Crosby.
Go live beyond your challenge and plug in your device.